Joe Biden with some criminally dumb comments. Maybe one of the worst comments I've ever heard from a major presidential candidate. There are problems that we have now, and then there are problems that we've had for a long time, and problems that are going to stick around. You see, we seem to forget that because every single news headline is Chinese Wuhan virus this and Chinese Wuhan virus that. But how did that get here? What are we doing? How do we get a drug problem in America? How do we get a labor problem in America? Why do all the districts along the Mexican-American border, why do they all go from red to blue steadily? Why does the Democratic Party as a whole support the complete abolishment for the most part of borders? Why? Are we allowed to ask these questions? Are we allowed to answer these questions? I mean, here is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to set politics aside and just look at this from a macro level, we've had this talk before on the show, you and I, about how America will fall one day. We don't know whether that's 50 years from now or 2,000 years from now. I don't pretend to know that. But when they write the history of America's fall, do you think sharing a border with a failed narco state is going to be part of that fall? Do you think that's going to be part of our history? In the same way we all look at the history of Rome and we try to learn lessons from it. Well, they did this. That was stupid. Oh, man, I can't believe they did that. How did they not see that coming? Well, when you're in the moment, you can't see it coming. Shouldn't we take a moment here in the United States of America and think about it? Shouldn't we think about the fact that we have people pouring over our border and we don't know who they are? Not only do we not know who they are, we're now making promises to them. One party at least, and half of the Republican Party, but one party at least is making promises to them that we're not even going to send you back. We have no control of the border. We do not have operational control of our border, and there is no push right now, none, to get operational control. Do you think operational control of a border is fairly important? What if, and look, this is purely a hypothetical here, but what if, let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say a deadly disease broke out in another country, and that other country couldn't control its borders and keep control of that disease. And that country's people with the disease started traveling abroad. And they got to that country that shares a border with you and it wasn't secure. Can you even imagine what the repercussions of that might be? It's difficult to picture, but man, we might even see business closures and people's jobs being wiped out because of that. We might see people dying. I know that's just way out of the realm of possibility, but it happens, right? And we have this drug problem, and we're all focused on some virus right now. But the drugs in this country wipe out several times more than this virus will ever hope. Every year they do that. And they're pouring in from across the border. Or the international criminal organizations across that border are outsourcing them and actually making the drugs here. And still, we have the man who's likely to be the Democrat nominee for President of the United States of America saying things like this.
In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all. From that point on, the only deportations that will take place are commissions of felonies in the United States of America.
So to be clear, only felons get deported and everyone else has to stay?
Yes. Yes.
That's insane. Insane policy. Not only the policy itself is insane, but the signal that sends to the South. Let me explain something to you. I don't know if you're aware, but in Mexico, in Central America, in Colombia, they have televisions too. They're not churning their butter out back with a big wooden stick and riding a horse and buggy. They get CNN as well. Let's say the economy takes a real big downturn, and by the way, with everything that's going on right now, that's the likely scenario. Let's say the economy takes a nosedive, a big one. Let's say the American people decide President Trump isn't for us. Maybe we should go with Joe Biden as president. Do you know what would happen from the second the election happened if Joe Biden won until he was actually inaugurated in January? Do you know what would happen at our southern border? Let me clue you in. Are you ready? Come in, because this has happened before. It would be a flood of humanity across that southern border because, like I said, they get CNN too. They watch that too. That is a welcome to America sign pasted on our southern border. How in the world, as a political party, can you stand for something like that? Yes, I understand you're always doing this outreach here and outreach there for votes, but how can you stand for the absolute destruction of your own country? I mean, you can say it, and it may make you uncomfortable, but the truth of the matter is, how can I look at something like that and say you're anything but anti-America? Not un-America, anti-America. You have a policy like that, old moderate Joe. You have a policy like that, I can only assume you don't give a crap about your country. And in fact, you actively hate it. Do with that what you will. All right, we got more. Hang on. Joining me now, this has got to be one of the coolest titles for a guest I've ever had on the show. Former Director of DEA's Special Ops, Derek Maltz, joins me now. Derek, before we get into all these idiotic comments from these politicians, tell me what exactly DEA's Special Ops does.
Okay, so back in the 90s, there was some visionary DEA executives that came up with a concept to go after the Medellin and Cali cartels, exploiting their communications. So the project evolved. I took it over in 2005. There were 9 agencies working together in one location in Northern Virginia. We expanded it to 30 agencies, 3 countries, and the NYPD. Because as you know, Jesse, that we now have a situation we've never faced in this country. We have to synchronize the efforts between the different law enforcement agencies, Department of Defense, and intel community. So my center was like an operational synchronization center, and it was awesome. I mean, we've made some good progress, but there's a lot of work to be done, and there's also a lot of issues to discuss about the place and the government in an overall response to this transnational crime threat.
Yeah, a threat which has not gone away. And by the way, just for my own, this had to do, some of that at least had to do with some of those planes y'all were flying over Medellin that were picking up and tracking cell phone signals, correct?
Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of parts to the program, but special operations focus on the judicialized elements of developing evidence, prosecuting these major kingpins in the United States. That was our mission. We had Department of Justice prosecutors working with us every day. So the goal was to develop evidence for prosecutions. There were a lot of different elements of government, DOD, others who were doing some great work, but our focus was on judicialized evidence collection and working with our counterparts to maximize impact.
Can you explain for people that there are people here within our borders that are serious heavy hitters when it comes to this stuff? I think so many people get under the impression that, well, they're all in Mexico. Well, they're all in Colombia, and that's not necessarily the case, right?
No, absolutely not. Jesse, first of all, when you talk about the Mexicans, this is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. They're in the business to make money. Just like major corporations have risk factors, right? They build that into their business model. So these guys have people all over the United States from all of these major cartels. They're operating in our cities. They're walking across the border on a daily basis with little vials of liquid meth that they're producing in laboratories here in America. As an example, I don't know if your viewers are aware of this, but just in February in Atlanta is a command and control hub for the Mexican cartels. They hit a location with 1,300 pounds of crystal meth. In Los Angeles, just in the month of February, the end of the month of February, they hit almost 2,700 pounds of crystal meth. That is the business we're talking about. We're not talking about these mom and pop labs from the old days with guys cooking meth in their basement, right? This is industrial methamphetamine labs being utilized by the Sinaloa cartel, the Jalisco cartel, and right now it's out of control. See, the public is focused on all the, obviously now with coronavirus, that's really, really important stuff. It's a national health crisis and everything like that. So I don't want to minimize the importance of coronavirus, right? But here's what I would say as a taxpayer. We had 68,000 people dying of drug overdoses from these synthetic opioids and these other drugs that are coming in from the cartels. And there's been no sense of urgency to shut that down. So that's not going to stop, because now more than ever, Jesse, people in America have a lot of anxiety, right? They're very, they're under stress. They're losing jobs. There's going to be more and more burglaries and crimes like that, so they can get the money to go out to the streets and buy this poison. The problem is these little Oxycontin, they call them Mexi-Oxys, they're loaded with fentanyl. They're killing kids instantly. So we have taken our eye off the ball. I'm not here to wave like the DEA flag or any U.S. government flag. We're all in this together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have people that are dying overseas. My brother included died in Afghanistan many years ago fighting, enduring freedom. But now we have families losing loved ones every day. And it's the cartels. It's not the big pharma right now. So we don't even have that right. So big pharma bombed the country years ago, Jesse, with opioids. Everyone got addicted. Now they're going to the street because they need the high. They're addicted. They have a problem.
Can you elaborate for me, and I'm sorry about this, but can you elaborate? I'm admittedly out of the game when it comes to crystal meth and its use, and I've lived a little bit in this life. I've never even seen it. But clearly when they're producing that kind of quantity, people, and more than just one or two guys, are consuming it here. Who is consuming this? Is it kids? Is this the bad neighborhoods? Is it rich people? Who is consuming this?
Jesse, pretty much a lot of people all over the country. So let me just give you a quick evolution. It's important for you to understand this. Back in the day, like in the 90s, there were mom and pop labs to produce meth all over America. They just needed some chemicals like pseudoephedrine or ephedrine. They bring it into a lab. They do their little mixtures. I'm not a chemist, so I don't know the process exactly. But what they do is they produce, a pound, 2 pounds of meth, and they give it to all the local users, right? Okay. Well, what happened was the DEA did a tremendous job in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they shut down the ability to bring precursors to the country. So pseudoephedrine, ephedrine was coming in from Canada, other places. So now the Mexican geniuses, the entrepreneurs, came up with a way to make money. They built these industrial labs in Mexico. The Sinaloa cartel, Chapo Guzman and others, built these manufacturing labs to produce massive amounts of meth. The problem is we started seeing over the years, instead of 1 and 2 pound seizures, we started seeing 100, 200, 500, 900, 1,000 pound seizures. So it's going out of control. And what's happening now, Jesse, to be honest with you, is that the public has no idea. They don't understand. So when these ignorant people make statements about the border and the cartels, they don't have the facts. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do. Educate as many people out there. And thank you, by the way, for having me on the show. I've been with, working with Emily and others, Dr. Drew and all these people in Fox News. My only goal is to make sure the moms and the fathers and the kids are educated. So guys like you and other people need to put this message out. We can't lose focus. It's destroying our future. We're not just talking about the drug traffickers. We're talking about billions of dollars that are going back to terrorists like Hezbollah. You're from Houston, right? Or you're in Houston. Go back to 2012 when they arrested this guy, Abab Siar. He was a Quds Force Soleimani operative in our country that went to a DEA informant who he thought was a Mexican cartel guy, and he wanted to kill and blow up the Saudi Arabian ambassador in a restaurant in D.C. And the whole public said, how did the Iranians get into our country? They're already here. They're all over the place. They're in South America, Central America. And you know what, Jesse? The border is not secure. Our Border Patrol has been doing phenomenal work. Mark Morgan and his people in CBP, I give them so many accolades, but they can't stop everything when guys are walking across lands and miles of border, going through the tunnel. Did you see the tunnel in San Diego in February? The longest one ever. It was almost, 4,300 feet long? They just seized it. The San Diego Task Force seized the tunnel. It had ventilation, it had lighting, very sophisticated. So God only knows who's coming through these tunnels that we don't even know about. So it's a big issue, and I appreciate you taking the interest in the topic.
No, thank you for giving us some time. That was some serious knowledge you dropped on us. Derek Maltz, former DEA, please keep doing what you do. I appreciate you.
Anytime, Jesse. Call me anytime. Thank you.